Hello, welcome to another edition of What the Papers Are Saying. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. We bring you the top stories that have made headlines for the week. When I come back, I will introduce to you my guests for today. Stay with us. So you're welcome back to What the Papers Are Saying. Let me introduce my guests for today's edition. I have Selorm Adonoo. By tomorrow, you'll be a proper lawyer, right? So from tomorrow, I'm going to say he's a lawyer, trained lawyer. But for now, he is the head of articles and features here at Citi FM and Citi TV. I've blown your cover. Yes, so welcome to What the Papers Are Saying. Thank you. And I have another great gentleman, a techie junkie, right?
Headmaster.
And we call him Headmaster here as well. He's the head of research. He's on the Citi Breakfast Show as well. Kojo, Akoto, Boateng. Welcome to What the Papers Are Saying.
Thank you, Vivian.
So let me run viewers through some of the big stories for the weekend. I think the one that has dominated the discussion so far is on the Comprehensive Sexuality Education. So we'll start with that and let you know what or how some of the papers reported the story. We'll start with the Citi newsroom because this is the latest to that story where GPCC is demanding the withdrawal of the comprehensive quote-unquote satanic engagements. That's how it's branding this CSE discussion. Still on Citi newsroom, it says pressure mounts on GES Education Ministry to withdraw CSE from curriculum. We go to the Daily Graphic. It says controversy. Ghanaians divided over new sexuality education. Ghanaian Times on that story says no sexuality education for KG Primary 6. Education Minister dismisses claim. Go back to Citi Newsroom and it says CSE unacceptable, must be withdrawn immediately. This is ex-President John Mahama. He made that remark on his Facebook post, I think, yesterday. Daily Graphic says no sex education curriculum, obviously from the education minister who has dismissed the reports. Also back to Citi Newsroom and it says Swedish government had injected $22 million into Ghana. Others CSE programs. This is Ablakwa, the MP, speaking. Daily Graphic again says sexuality education not approved. Education minister declares. And we come back to the Citi Newsroom. And it says GNEC questions basis for introduction of CSE. Let's go to the Informer if we can. And it says attempt to sneak homosexuality into school curriculum. UN blows Akufo-Addo's cover, says government presented policy document for funding. And also we move to the Ghanaian Observer and see how they reported it. They say CSE is not approved by government. NAPO sets record straight. So that's the big story still making headlines here in Ghana. Let's move to the second story we'll look at for today, and it's on plastic waste management. The president spoke yesterday on plans by government to deal with this. And we go to Citi Newsroom and it says government launches action plan to curb plastic pollution. And then still on Citi Newsroom, Koniwas cast doubt over action plan to fight plastics, obviously in reaction to yesterday's launch of the action plan. And the Daily Graphic had an editorial on plastic waste management. It was launch of National Plastic Action Partnership timely. That's from the Daily Graphic on that matter. Another story that made headlines this week was on the police brutality, and that story was broken by the Chronicle. So let's go to how they broke it early this week. The Chronicle says torture chamber is barbaric, inhumane. Perpetrators run to chief for cover. Also, Citi Newsroom followed up with a story and says victim brutalized by police officers at Koforidua breaks silence. He spoke to Citi Newsroom yesterday on what he went through in police custody. Now, the Chronicle came back again today and says torture victim pleads for attackers, but father arms himself for court battle. We go back to Citi Newsroom, and family of man brutalized by police in Koforidua to push for compensation. And our final discussion today will be on job creation and unemployment. And we'll go to the Ghanaian Times, and it says big boost for youth employment as government launches 4 new initiatives. The Business Finder says youth to get permanent jobs as Dr. Baumia launches Yay Job Center. And then ABC News says more jobs coming, Yay boss assures. And finally, to the new crusading guide, it says also more jobs for Ghanaian youth as VIP launches Yay Job Center. So those are some of the big stories for the week. 2 of them are still under discussion. That's to do with the police brutality as well as the comprehensive sexuality education issue. So let me bring in my gentleman now, and we'll start with the CSE, which has made quite a lot of led to a lot of discussions on the airwaves, I'm sure, at home and all that. You guys have kids, so I'm sure you're hugely concerned about what will be taught in school, especially Kojo, you pretty soon, but Selorm, she's already en route to the age 6 and all that.
No, it's 3 actually. And
3,
she asks
okay.
Interesting questions, and sometimes I have to find a way of answering some of those questions.
Yeah.
So I think it makes relevant the issue about sex education, or what we call comprehensive sexuality education. So I mean, just to begin a discussion, I think that the confusion around this whole thing has been quite needless. I say so.
Feel it's been needless?
No, I say so because if the ministry or the Ghana Education Service had done its job properly, in terms of communicating really what is entailed in the curriculum we are yet to see, in terms of what is actually contained in there and how they hope to adapt it to suit our situation, I don't think a lot of these would have arisen, because a lot of the things that we now hear will be spoken about, though I must also say that the Education Minister has come out clearly to say that the implementation of the CSE will not be this academic year, even though in his previous comments, he's alluded to a certain intention by the system, maybe by government or by the education authorities, to do something about the sexuality education in the years ahead. I think the way they communicated it and the way they anticipated it was poor. In PR and communication, there's what we call the communication risks. If you are introducing a subject matter which is quite controversial, which will be controversial, you should be able to know that this will be controversial.
Did it make me think that it wouldn't be, wouldn't really be concerned?
That is what baffles me, because I should think that there are trained PR and communications people at the GES and at the ministry. So this is their job really. You should be able to contemplate what people will think. We are quite a conservative society. We are a religious society or a religious country, though we are a sacred country by law. But by religious country, I mean, we know from the census results that about 70% of us are Christians. About some 20% or so are Muslims, and the rest traditional and other religions. A few people may be atheists. But because a lot of us identify with one faith or the other, and Ghanaians as we are very religious. We go to church, we go to the mosque, we consult our little gods under our beds, etc. So there are things we hold dear to our hearts. Morality, things especially which have been frowned on by the holy books. And this is one subject that you see Muslims and Christians alike coming out so strongly against. The Muslims say they don't want it, it's a taboo. The Christians also say it is wrong, they don't want it. And indeed, this evening I saw a statement by the Ghana Pentecostal and charismatic churches also, being very categorical in their call.
They are terming it comprehensive satanic engagement.
You see,
CSE.
So that goes a long way to tell us the kind of society we have. So if you are introducing a thing like this, you need to test the grounds properly. You need to drop hints. You need to let people know exactly what it is.
Well,
Even
some
if it
say
means,
that putting it on social media or seeing it on social media over the weekend
it's obviously,
was sort of a testing.
It's obviously backfired.
So now they've gotten the reaction.
No, but do you want all this bad press? Is this what you want? You don't want this. You know, even if it means changing the name of it to suit our own cause, that is fine. But again, I can also understand the apprehension on the part of many people. It is basically fear, because they feel that this is a conduit, the powers that be, you know, Western countries, international NGOs, are seeking to introduce LGBT elements into our children. Nobody has mentioned LGBT in the guidelines we've seen, in the framework we've seen, and understand it's not even the curriculum at all. Nobody has mentioned that. But what is clear is that the language used by the guidelines, and indeed the foreword written by the Ghana Education Service boss, that language is essentially the language used by proponents of this agenda, talking about openness, talking about non-judgmental, talking about human rights, etc. So the people who complain about it see that this is the language that people use. And now you are going to teach our children not to be judgmental. You are going to teach our children to be open about how they see the sexuality of themselves and other people, amongst other things. It is, you know, Ghanaians are judgmental as far as this matter is concerned.
Right.
And I've already explained that that is traceable to the fact that we are a religious people. Okay. So the discussion really is a religious argument. It is one of liberal progressivism and conservatism, where some people think that we must hold dear our traditional values, moral values, etc. We must find a way of resisting some kinds of change which would dilute our moral society. But then
some also say, well, we want to resist this change. We don't want to discuss these things. But the reality on the ground, these things are happening. As early as 8 years, 9 years, children are getting defiled. Children are having discussions with adults over these things. Children are watching things on TV, on their laptops and all that. So why don't we tackle these issues as they come, rather than pretend?
Exactly the point. That's why I'm saying that the guys who were communicating this failed. So you could have come from this angle, and every parent will be interested in knowing what it is. Today, we watch a lot of things on TV. I mean, sometimes parents just put on a TV, leave the TV on a cartoon station, so the children will be quiet whilst they get on with their business. But today, there are cartoon characters which are gay.
Yes.
You know, there are emojis.
Yes.
Which are gay.
Yes.
We are not watching those things. You get me? So the education people should have found a better way of communicating this. It all boiled down to communication. It wasn't communicated well. That is to be blamed for all the uproar and all the controversies we've seen. For me, the controversy is good in one sense. It tells the powers that be that the people of Ghana, now and the immediate future, will not countenance and are not happy and will not tolerate anything that smells, you know, the slightest of any LGBT thing. Nobody has mentioned LGBT.
Yes.
That is my
okay, let me bring in Kojo for his initial remarks on this story. Yeah. Selorm says now people are, quote unquote, wild. Don't bring anything that you don't want.
Yeah. But you see, Selorm mentioned fear. The fear of LGBT or the fear of the unknown. And also mentions the fact that the ministry and the GES didn't communicate these things very well. But I also think that even the people speaking about this whole subject of CSE are also fear-mongering, and people who you think...
you think so?
Yeah, and people who you think must know right.
Like who? Which of the quarters
are not reading and getting a full grasp of the issues in its totality to speak to it. For example, the fact that when the conversation started, people on social media were saying that our kids as early as 4 years were going to be taught how to do this, do that, do this.
In a bit, I'll go through what the real thing is, but you go on.
You understand, when people have actually not read this. And if we should think about socialization, like we learned in social studies, you know the agents of socialization have changed, right? Primary socialization, we were taught, will start from home.
Yeah.
And then your immediate environment, and then school, and other institutions. But now it's changed. And there are so many dynamics in the global village now, the global workspace now, which must be taught. All right? We as a nation, we as a people must know where we are coming from, where we are now, where we want to go, and where whatever we do and how it relates to the larger global gameplay.
Well, from the agitations, it's obvious we don't want to go down the LGBT line.
No, look, I've read the document, okay? And as early as this year, when the finance minister went to Parliament, he actually mentioned the fact that the government, as part of the institutional development program, the government was working with the Population Council to roll out a comprehensive sexuality education, which will be incorporated into our school curriculum.
Okay.
So there's a clear direction that this is something the government wants to do. But what actually is the content of the CSC? What does it seek to do? How do we look at the contents or the intention and tailor it to serve a purpose for the country? I think that's where we failed. So people are thinking comprehensive sexuality education, we are going to promote LGBT, so let's throw the thing away into the collie. And I think that approach to national discussions is really not right. Having said that, I think our policymakers and the people who have to get the nation's buy-in in a lot of policies fail us, even from the onset. Now, from the design stage, we should know that policies are being made for the people. So from the design stage, there should be a scientifically laid down communication strategy to engage, to educate and inform the people as to whatever policy we are putting together aims to achieve. And also get feedback as you design the policy. Then once you are done with the drafts and you go through everything, you roll out a massive nationwide campaign to then tell people that this is what we've all decided based on your inputs and whatever is prevailing in the system.
Okay. And
this is where it can get you to, and this is how we are going to roll it out. We usually fail in doing that.
Okay. Okay, let me run you guys through the module that has led to a lot of agitations from the public. Initially, the document that was on social media, it said that the teachings will start at 4 to 5 years. Now it's been corrected, and government is saying actually it will start from primary school, or this will be between 6 to 11 years. So what we saw initially, preschool, 4 to 5 years of module 1, which was what we believe in, how we interact, or personal hygiene, oral hygiene, that is not in the proper copy. So the proper copy has primary school, 6 to 11 years. Now at primary 1, which is the 6 years, you have values and society, social norms, what we believe in. The second session is personal hygiene, oral and hygiene. Then the third session, which we saw on social media, had to do with myself, being a male or female. We are told that is not part of what the real thing has. Now, let me move to primary 3, which is around 8 years, because of primary 2, the things there, I think, are fine. It has to do with, I think the controversial one that people started connecting the LGBT was on Model 5, Session 3, which was concept of gender, maleness and femaleness. Yeah. We're told that doesn't exist in the final one, the proper one. Now, another one, primary 4, 9 years, second module, knowing about one's body or sexual and reproductive organs, which we saw a lot of pictures around social media showing all kinds of things. We're told...
That's supposed to be for which class?
This now goes to, this is what social media had was primary 4, 9 years. But we are told this goes to 10 years rather. 10 years, you have that discussion there. And so that one moves to 10 years. And then another one, let me look out for the controversial ones. So if you go to primary 6, 11 years, fertility, pregnancy-related issues, and childbirth is actually there. And Dr. Pia, when we spoke to her, she said, well, there are a lot of issues to do with teenage pregnancy and all that. The earlier we discuss these things with them, the better. Things around concept of gender, norms, roles, and stereotyping are not in the actual thing. Population as a resource, essence of healthy population, that is not in as well. JHS 1, 12 years, sexual and reproductive health rights are not in there, as we saw on social media. And then this thing about how to wear a condom, which was also causing a lot of, is actually in there. It comes under preventing common diseases, infections among adolescents. This is age 14. I think if you go around this is not bad, is it, guys? Age 14, you see, people are having sex. The kids are having sex, whether we like it or not.
The truth of the matter is, I mean, it's just the packaging. So this was an initial document. It underwent some changes, and maybe a better document came out. But the way it was packaged and the way people spoke about it, like Kojo said, the people who were to speak about the document or speak to the document did not even know what they were saying. They did not know what it contained and what the evolution of the original document to where we have it now has been. So they failed to carry the people along. So, for example, if nobody is explaining that, this is not in it, this is not in it, and then you are just saying comprehensive sexuality education, the term comprehensive itself, opens you up to a lot of things. And the term sexuality. And in Ghana, for a lot of averagely minded people, when you talk about sexuality, their mind goes straight to sexual orientation. So I think that the way it was packaged and the kinds of people who spoke about the matter or on the matter did not help matters. Teaching children in Class 6 or GSS 1 about teenage pregnancies, rape, and those things, protection. I don't think it is bad. It is actually the way to go. Teaching children in GSS 3, 14 years and all, about, should I call it family planning or things like that, abstinence, use of condom.
Pregnancy-related issues and childbirth fertility.
It is not out of place because that is where the world is going. The influences in the lives of these young people, are many. So, though a lot of people will prefer the abstinence, education or teaching, which is actually the best, there are people who do not actually believe in that. So, whilst people preach, or whilst we preach the abstinence and we call on the religious, bodies to intensify their teaching and education on abstinence, they must also bear in mind that there are other influences. So maybe they need to up their game a bit. If indeed they are really against the ills of society, they must find a way of correcting them. And no better way of correcting them than teaching the children from a younger age the consequences of engaging in premarital sex, etc., which is the work of the church and the work of the mosque or the work of the religious bodies. But it's unfortunate that these days a lot of the clergy and the religious institutions have shirked that responsibility and have entered what has become known as the prosperity gospel. But these are the weightier matters that I think we should be dealing
So with this CSE, is the problem the name or the content or both?
I think in the Ghanaian context, the problem, knowing how we react to certain names and certain attributes, I think the name was a problem or is a problem. We've not seen the main content as has been approved to be taught in schools. I don't know whether you have seen it. What we've seen is a guideline, right?
The guidelines.
But let me ask this question. For example, the bit about the maleness and femaleness
which
in the
doesn't
guidelines,
exist
which has been expunged now. What really is the situation now globally? 20 years ago, if you were filling a form, gender, there was M and F, male and female. These days, there is transgender, there is that, there is that, there is that. And it's not that we are disconnected from the rest of the world. Would you want your kids to know the reality on the ground, as in the new definitions, and point them in the right direction that per our culture, our values, this is what we would advise you do? The same thing with the ABC, abstinence, be faithful, condom use and all. The fact that I'm teaching you condom use at age 14 doesn't mean I'm encouraging you to go do it. But if you are stubborn enough not to want to do the right thing, at least protect yourself. Now, on the maleness and the femaleness thing, recently we saw some issues on social media. People who were seen to be gay in Trotsky's and they were attacked by people, right? Let's say that homosexuality is illegal in Ghana, so you can't be so. But if somebody is found to be so, is the first resort by the people, should that be the first resort to attack the person?
No, that's wrong. That's
wrong. If you don't orient the Ghanaian child very well, and assuming he goes into a place where it's legal and normal, and they go see these things, how would they react and how do they deal with these things? So I just feel that whatever is fact, whatever persists, we need to teach. But once you teach,
but
you also
feel when you teach them, you are drawing them into it, or reinforcing the fact that they exist, and if that's the way you feel, you can move towards that place. But the problem is we frown upon it, or most Ghanaians, based on our religion, our culture, and all that. We're against it, so it's dangerous for you to open them up to this.
There's a very thin line, but you look at what is happening globally, and the reality is that there exist definitions for different things, right? Now, the documents we've read and the various literature we've read on this, it's promoting fairness, it's promoting human rights. It could be illegal in your country, but if it's legal somewhere, somebody has the right to do it. And you do not impose your cultural or your religious beliefs on that person.
So you are for us going that mile?
I am for us looking at the guidelines as it is, and then looking at the content, tweaking the content to meet our needs as a country, to be specific to our needs. The thing that happens when let me give you an example. When we signed the secondary education improvement project with the World Bank, that was to fund the construction of day senior high schools, community day senior high schools, and a few other things. There had been research that girls in rural areas and underdeveloped areas miss a lot of school days because when they are in their menses, they are ashamed and they don't go to school and they don't have sanitary pads and all that. So there was a component in that. When people heard that, immediately, the conversation we had not spent time to read the literature, get the facts behind the decision-making for that. Immediately we ran out. Oh, they are going to distribute, we are using our money for sanitary pads. They are going to collect the blood of the girls for rituals. we over-sensationalize that. So the point I am trying to make is that I've gone through the documents, okay? I've gone through the NACA training manual, which is about 398 pages. And that manual tells us some of the key elements driving the thoughts and the formulation of curricula around the world. The green economy, climate change, comprehensive sexuality education, and all those things. Now somebody picks that thing up and sees that thing and says, Yanka, they are teaching them comprehensive sexuality education. When after reading the whole document, what the curriculum has approved, the science education, the coding, everything is in there, but there's nothing on comprehensive sexuality education. So what I'm saying is that leadership, opinion leaders, it's great to have all of them engage the nation in conversations. But before we touch sensitive issues, we must prep ourselves not to mess up the conversation, to deny us.
Yeah, but if you look at the reactions from prominent people who I'm sure have had access, or because we are told some people were engaged in the initial discussions and all that, and they are all speaking against it, the Christian Council, the Chief Imam, and so many others. For example, today the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council branded it as comprehensive satanic engagement. Now, the President of the Council, Reverend Professor Paul Mansell, said, quote, "We are here to address and state our official position on the raging debate and controversy of the comprehensive sexuality education, which I've termed comprehensive satanic education, because of the impact it can have on our children, which the government, through the Ministry of Education, intended to introduce into the basic schools curriculum come the next academic year." Also, the Chief Imam spoke to the Daily Graphic this week, and it said, quote, "We appeal to the Ministry of Education and the GS to drop that satanic agenda." The satanic thing pops up again, in the interest of national cohesion and moral promotion. We've also had the Christian Council speaking against it, Reverend Dr. Kwabena Opunifrimpo. He says, at the moment, there's public mistrust for the policy because we know that the CSE policy is in countries such as the US, Canada, and South Africa. And the module being run there allows children's sexuality rights, including the right to decide which sexuality they feel like being. If that is the model the GES is introducing, then it cannot be accepted for our children, he said. And the other prominent people goes on and on. But I'll take a quick break. When we come back, react to some of the comments from these prominent people. Stay with us. Don't go away.
It's a new and exciting season of the Premier League with the Premier League Preview Show on Citi TV. Get the best opinions, build-up, and team news ahead of each match week in the season to help you stay in the loop. Is Fantasy League your thing? No worries. Get all the tips and hacks from our in-house expert and put the competition to sleep.
If you come up against teams like Liverpool, for example, in the Premier League, in the opening day of the Premier League season, Liverpool arguably one of the best teams in the Premier League, you're not going to get a lot of chances. You're not going to be able to play that sort of flamboyant football.
It's the Premier League Preview Show every Friday at 3 p.m. only on Citi TV. The story of love, greed, revenge, and betrayal continues on the award-winning telenovela Brazil Avenue. Carmenia now knows Rita's identity. Rita, a woman driven by revenge, has finally gotten Carmenia where she wants her. It's still a story of twists, turns, suspense, and thrills in Brazil Avenue.
Have you ever wondered if I tell everyone that the maid is going out with the boss's son? Have you ever imagined that?
You won't do that. You want to know why? Because if you say that, then I will tell everyone that you broke into the safe, okay? Then, my friend, you're screwed.
And it will be the maid's word against Ivana's husband's word. And what do you think is going to happen, Nina? I swear you don't have any proof at all against me, Nina.
Brazil Avenue airs Wednesdays to Fridays at 10 p.m. Brazil Avenue's Omnibus airs on Sundays at 12:30 p.m. only on Citi TV.
Yeah, welcome back to What the Papers Are Saying. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. I'm here with Selorm, Adonoo, and Kojo Akoto Boateng. Before we took that break, we're talking about looking at reactions from prominent people on the CSC. So, guys, we're looking at the chief imam has spoken about this, the Christian Council, the Ghana Pentecostal Council, and the president of the Coalition of Concerned Teachers has also spoken. And it appears they're all against plans to introduce this.
Yes. You see, given the amount of information or the scanty nature of information available, I mean, that was going to be the natural consequence. And mind you, there's a lot of suspicion in the system about what the Western world's agenda is and what money can do. And we've also heard stories about how the Western world intends to tie aid to some of these things. Yeah. So when they begin seeing things which look like signs, then they get, apprehensive and begin to say everything else they want to say. Even though the documents we've seen so far and read haven't made any, reference to LGBT. But because that is the suspicion they've had, and because that's what they've been thinking about every time, the least opportunity, they pour it out. So that is one. I also heard Katie Hammond this evening on Eyewitness News, saying a lot of things. He didn't even know that the CSE had a mention in the budget and all of that.
Yeah.
And he sounded a bit resolute about what should be done, that no Ghanaian or nobody is ready for this LGBT thing. Again, even though the documents we have seen haven't mentioned LGBT. My comment to him is that if he's an MP, and if he feels strongly about this, and I'm sure a lot of his colleagues also feel strongly about it, We are a nation of laws. We have the Criminal Offences Act, which I think is section 104, also talks about unnatural carnal knowledge. All these LGBT matters, you know, and how they manifest and their practice, you know, could loosely be described as unnatural carnal knowledge. Yeah. But that alone is not unnatural carnal knowledge. Oral sex could be unnatural carnal knowledge. And are we saying, is that wrong? That's a question we must deal with. The people who scream unnatural carnal knowledge being wrong, is oral sex wrong? What I think they should do is to advocate a change or an amendment of the law. Of course, they cannot on their own change the law because of a few issues we've had in the past about private members sponsoring bills. But there is a connection or a link between Parliament and the executive in the person of the Parliamentary Affairs Minister. They can work around it if they feel so strongly about it, codify it in the law, and make it explicit that this is it, this is wrong, and this should not be. But if you always hide behind the unnatural carnal knowledge thing, I think it is not enough because the law itself is not clear. So if they feel strongly about it, they should get back to work and ensure that the law is strong.
Could you have final words?
Yeah, I think that the reaction of the various stakeholders points to the fact that usually when we decide to do something as a nation for the nation, we don't do a better work when it comes to comprehensive engagement of all the players involved. If we are doing something that borders on our culture, sexuality, education, morals, hygiene, health, one would assume that all the key stakeholders would be approached and their inputs taken. Not is kicking against this Christian Council, Pentecostal, the Chief Imam's office is kicking against it. It means I can just infer that they were not consulted. The various players that were supposed to be consulted to get inputs in this were not done. And I think these and other things that have happened before should inform leadership and those are put in charge of policy making and implementation to always engage and seek enough inputs all around so that we don't hit some of these bottlenecks and some of these challenges.
Just a quick one. You see, as we're dealing with the authorities on lack of a proper stakeholder engagement and, poor communication and packaging of this CSE thing, I think we must also call out the cynical society, the people who, for whatever reason, look for documents which are not even related to this subject matter, take screenshots and share them on social media to cause fear and panic. They are evil. I don't know what the intention is to obfuscate the matters or the subject. I think it is wrong. And as a society, if we want to develop and grow in the way we all aspire or wish to, some of these people should be called out. And it is not proper to engage in things like this.
Okay, let me take some of your messages you've sent to us. This is from Eric Marcos Enyan Dinchira. He says, the MPP government must eat humble pie and apologize to the people of Ghana. Education Minister is claiming CSE is yet to be approved. Meanwhile, budget allocation was made for its implementation. For me, the fact that the budget captured it clearly defined the intention of the government. We, the parents in Ghana, do not want comprehensive sexuality education for our toddlers. This one says, as a matter of fact, for this government to conceive and propose the whole idea of CSE, as well as giving it a space in the national budget and school curriculum alone, poses a great danger for our future and must be resisted to protect Ghana's integrity. And Maxwell in Garu says, this so-called CSE must go through some serious process if it really has to be introduced. For me, I think this teaching will do more harm than good. Okay, so let's move to our second issue to do with plastic waste management. And this week, the president launched the action plan to curb plastic pollution. Our President Nana Akufo-Addo has launched the Ghana National Plastics Action Partnership, which seeks to stop the growth of global plastic pollution and also ensure, among others, that plastics do not find their way into the country's marine bodies. Speaking at the launch of the initiative at the Labadi Beach Hotel, President Akufo-Addo noted that the menace of plastic pollution has become one of the most pressing challenges facing mankind today. Now, his launch, CONEWAS, which is a CSO, has reacted to the action plan that we've launched to deal with plastic pollution, and its executive secretary says he does not think the Ghana National Plastics Action Partnership will amount to much. Speaking after the initiative, which seeks to counter the alarming plastic pollution, Mr. Apoya held out a little hope that the government will this time around back a policy with action. Recalling the National Sanitation Campaign launched in November 2017, he said the launch of the National Sanitation Campaign was more impressive, was more motivating, and gave more hope to Ghanaians that something was going to happen. After that speech, we have seen only about 20% achievement of what was launched, and I don't see how we'll make this one different. Now, Kojo, you are in this space, waste management and all that. Has fears justified, Mr. Apoya, on the fact that this launch is just one of what we see every now and then, and nothing will come out of trying to solve this challenge of plastic pollution in Ghana?
If you look at this launch that happened yesterday, was it yesterday?
I think
or
yesterday,
2
days ago.
Yes.
Tuesday, right? Tuesday.
So it's the World Economic Forum and other global partners pushing for the fight against plastics globally. And Ghana launched the action plan, which we tie into the global conversation. Now, I listened to CONEWAS very well on the Eyewitness News, and a bit of me agreed with them.
You think we can't solve this with all these talk shop launch?
You know why a bit of me agrees with them. Now, we had the National Environmental and Sanitation Action Plan. Sometime in 2010, 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
And this action plan spelled out our sanitation and environment issues, the various things that had to be done, the agencies responsible, the agencies to coordinate.
Clearly cut out.
If you look at that action plan, it was a very good document, right? But implementation and execution.
Why are we having
that has always been
that?
One of the biggest problems, implementation and execution of some of the plans. Now, the Ministry of Sanitation is working on a national waste management plan and strategy. Ministry of Environment is also working on a plastics management plan and strategy. When the previous government was in office, a lot of work was done by various stakeholders, especially after the June 3 flood disaster, when fire and flood disaster, when it was established that a lot of plastics blocked the drains, so water could not flow, and all these issues happened. We said we're going to ban the use of certain types of plastics. I think the size was 20 microns, but we couldn't see that through. We set up a plastics levy for people importing plastic products into the country, which was to accrue funds that would be disbursed to various agencies to lead the fight against plastics. 1, education; 2, recycling and reuse; and 3, helping us to cut down on plastics. We also failed to do that. So his argument that this launch with all the pomp and pageantry looks like any of the other things we've done is premised on the fact that over the years there were a lot of things we did, a lot of strategies we put in place, but there was no political will, there was no execution. So this also looks like that. And I think that's where his argument is. But this is the time for all of us to sit up as a people, whether leadership of the country will see to it that plastics which have become a menace will be dealt with appropriately. This is the time we all have to push and get this done. Because look, if you look all around us, our drains are choked with plastics. Our landfill sites, plastics. Our water bodies, plastics. And it tells us how we've not really worked on the material in transit policy and dealing with waste. If you look at the waste we generate, 14% is plastics. National municipal solid waste generation. And this 14%, if you want to equate, is about 350,000 207 church Benz buses a year worth of plastics. Less than 2% of this is recycled. So where does the rest end? They end up in our landfill sites, in our immediate environment, in our water bodies, creating all sorts of problems for us. So we decided to ban certain types of plastic, the single-use type of plastics. Can we ban it? Is there an opportunity to ban it? What are alternative products that can replace these? What is the alternative industry we can build to replace these single-use plastics? That is the question we should ask ourselves. And I think that we are way too late in dealing with the single-use plastics.
I feel so.
Yes, because look, you go to the shopping mall, you buy something, they'll put these set of things in one plastic bag, another set here, another set here, another set there, another set there.
Because, for example, if you have ice cream, you can't mix it with the soap. So they have to separate it. If you have bread, it has to be separated from the ice cream because it will become wet. So,
but we all know that there is no system of proper segregation and dealing with the plastics. So one thing we can do to help ourselves is to have a strategy to help reduce the consumption.
Okay.
Whilst immediately we find ways to reuse other plastic products and then recycle.
Okay.
And largely, as we move forward, we need to look at certain industries that we have, especially the food industry, the food and beverages industry. They're one of the biggest corporates in the use of plastics. What other packaging materials can we have or can we use for food? And how can we tweak the industries such that we use less plastics?
Okay.
Those are some of the things that I think largely we should be thinking about to do with this.
Yes, I mean, very laudable action plan. And again, the fear expressed by Patrick Apoya of Cornwallis, like Kojo said, you can find some space for it because we live in a system where, I mean, and this is not limited to this government, where documents are launched with a lot of pomps and pageantry, but just after the launch of the document, everybody goes to sleep and we do things as if nothing has been launched at all. We are good at putting documents together. I mean, somebody who works in the international space once said that when it comes to putting documents together, they come to Ghanaians. But when it comes to the implementation of the ideas in the document, then you look to the Asians. I don't know whether it's certainly not a good thing to want to be ascribed to you, but it tells you how our attitudes have been over the years. The idea about landfill sites is certainly not sustainable. You can't keep dumping refuse at places, and when it becomes like a mountain, you move to another place. Yeah. In terms of the health of it, it's not even healthy. It is not proper. We need to up our game when it comes to recycling plastics, segregating them, etc. But when I think about segregating the waste, I also think about how many households have dustbins. Whether we as a people are able to even take care of dustbins at public places. Or someone who said something recently, that sometimes it's even more expensive keeping the dustbin itself there than the other things you have to do. And he mentions the fact, of course, I've seen a number of dustbins provided maybe by the Ministry of Sanitation, Water and Sanitation. You see a concrete platform for the dustbin. You see a pole. You see a belt. And you see a lock.
Well, people were stealing them.
How much? I mean, how much is a dustbin? You see a concrete platform. You see a pole. So when you look at the cost of all these accoutrements or accompaniments, the cost of this is more than the cost of the dustbin. Why? Because we have a people who are, a lot of our people are bad. They want to steal the dustbins. So now this segregating the waste becomes a problem because you don't know where to put them. When we're able to scale that, then now we can seriously talk about recycling so that when you have the plastics in one bin, it's easier to work on it in terms of recycling. Of course, I also know about private initiatives, people who have decided to organize themselves into NGOs, etc., go look for plastic bottles, melt them into what they call bales and then ship them out for recycling, after which they will convert those into covered drains, drain covers, and if possible, build with them, because I understand in Côte d'Ivoire, for example, they are able to use recycled plastics to build schools and other things.
You're going too far. In Ghana, Nel Plus uses plastics for
there's so much potential
blocks
in that space. And think about the number of jobs that will be created if we are able to harness that space and a whole lot. The recycling thing is a big thing. And I think we should police the action plan and ensure that the authorities, give it the necessary political will, so we don't get back to the same place we are a few months down the line. I also understand that in the next 20 years or 50 years, there'll be more plastics
by 2050.
By 2050.
At this rate, there'll be more plastics in the ocean
than fishes. I was at the beach by the Benin Power Hall recently. Beach doesn't mean I went to swim. And I was walking by the beach, and I was looking for places to step. The beach, the waste. Human excreta, the plastics.
They are in competition.
Terrible. We have to begin tackling some of these things from the root if we really want to take.
Okay, I have to take a quick break, and then when we return, we discuss our final one on torture, police brutality in Kojo. Stay with us. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko, and we're here with Selorm, Adonoo, and Kojo Akoto Boateng. You're watching What the Papers Are Saying. We'll be right back.
It's incredible stuff, really, when you put these kids together.
Are you ready for the battle? For the battle of brains in an all-new intellectual experience that is yet to hit your TV screen. Catch the maiden edition of the Best Brain Quiz Competition as the best junior high schools battle it out for glory and pride. It will be educative, fun, but above all, it will be competitive on the Best Brain stage. Best Brain is brought to you by Citi TV and supported by 97.3 Citi FM.
Now your final answer?
Yes.
And that is indeed correct.
Yeah, welcome back to What the Papers Are Saying. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. I'm here with Selorm, Adonoo, and Kojo Akoto Boateng. Kojo, I'll take your final words on the plastic pollution that we move.
Yes, so if you look around us all over the country, when we went on the Heritage Caravan, even small villages you'd pass by, you see a lot of plastic waste scattered all around. And the key thing is, it's water, the sachet water, and sometimes you see bottles. That's the small villages. Come to the urban areas and you go to the very affluent areas, then you see the plastic bottles. What it tells us is that there is something that is causing people to turn to stuff that have plastic packaging. Okay. And I think that the unavailability of potable water generally across the country is one of the contributory factors. I personally believe that if we improved production and supply of water to all the corners of the country, we can cut our national plastic use by about 25 to 30%. Okay. Now, where I live, I don't have any water from Ghana Water, right? So I have to buy bottled water. Or you have to get the big dispenser. Some of the companies do accept them for reuse. Some of them don't accept them. So let's look, as a country, let's look at provision of potable water. Even water from Ghana Water Company, we must aspire to make the water so good to meet the highest international standards such that you can even drink the water straight from the taps, like they do in Singapore. Once we do that, I believe that we can cut a lot of the packaging for water-based plastic products, which will help us nationally to reduce our use of plastics. And then let's think about proper waste management systems all across board. A proper waste management system then will factor in plastics, the human excreta that Selorm mentioned, how we can reuse all these for productive purposes. That way, we also deal with the plastic menace and the various problems that plastics get us into.
All right, thanks, Kojo. Well, let's go to our final story on the brutality we saw about 2-3 days ago. It started with a chronicle. They released or broke that story. We have just 5 minutes to talk about this story, but just a quick thing around it. Deputy Public Relations Officer of the Eastern Regional Police Command, Sergeant Francis Gomado, has described the actions of 2 police officers who subjected a suspect to severe beatings at a police station as barbaric and inhumane. According to him, quote, "The actions of my colleagues are barbaric, inhumane, unprofessional, and outmoded way of getting information from suspects, which needs to be condemned with all honesty." Were you surprised when you saw that video? I was shocked.
Well, It's becoming one too many. Every now and then we talk about police and what they are not doing right. I think it was wrong for them to have done that. If somebody is in custody, the person is just a suspect. And our laws say that, the person is presumed innocent until proven guilty. If the person is even proven guilty, you don't have the right, of course, under very different circumstances, you don't have the right to even treat the person in the manner they treated the guy. That is wrong on all fronts. So I want to commend the IGP for acting very swiftly, interdicting them, and making them go through the police processes. But I think beyond going through the police processes, they should be made to stand criminal trial. What they did was wrong. That is battery. That is assaulting the man. That is bad. They must be made to go through the process. Even if the state doesn't prosecute them, the guy in question should take a civil action, because it's a tortious offense. Take civil action against the police and deal with them. Recently, there were some police people who beat up our journalist friend, Malik Suleimana, around the Novotel area. He took the matter on, a civil action, and the gentleman, I understand, was crying in court. He didn't know what came over him. He was crying in court because he felt embarrassed. He felt now everybody was against him, etc. It is unfortunate that the police service, which is a very noble institution, has had a few bad nuts within it, and those bad nuts are giving it a bad name and smearing everybody. There should be decisive action from the top to send a message very clearly to the rank and file of the Ghana Police Service and indeed all our security agencies that buga mentality of security operations must stop. It's a new era. The law tells us how suspects must be dealt with. They are just suspects.
Okay.
He could be innocent. Yeah. So why do you take him through that?
Yeah.
It is wrong.
Okay, Kojo, you have 1 minute.
When my incoming lawyer,
no, tomorrow is a lawyer. Tomorrow we are going there.
When he comments about an issue like this,
right? The new place.
Economics.
Because we will be there.
we say opinion dry we are known to us. When the elder finishes taking it
No,
he said it all. He said it all. So I really do not want to add anything, but he said that the police should also look at their training regimes to let people know that it's a service. Okay, the approach to dealing with people, even when somebody is on the wrong side of the law, your approach, your first approach and your first touch, the first word they use. Sometimes you do something and the police accost you and they start shouting and screaming. We need to stop that. The police must earn the trust and even the love and affection of the populace so that we can work better with them. So Selorm has said it, looking at the legal angles and everything, but generally the police service must win the populace again. The distrust for the service and the disrespect because of some of these occurrences is becoming one too many, and I just hope that the service works on it. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Selorm Adonoo and Kojo Akoto Boateng. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. Thank you so much for staying with us. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.